In today's episode, we discuss the record-breaking stand-up coaster that found new life through an innovative conversion. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Yeah. Haley and I both kind of looked at each other. And
You're like, wait, who's
you
saying what?
say something? Episode 54.
Oh.
Yeah, we only have, after this one, there's only 3 more episodes left in the season, so that's pretty crazy. So yeah, we'll take a break at when the new year starts is kind of when we'll take a breather for 3 months, and then we'll start up again in early April and get back to it. So
yep.
Just gives us a little bit of time to maybe focus on other things that have been lacking, and give me some chance to catch up on my research, and
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of a break there for a few months. So, plus it's kind of the off season for amusement parks anyway, so it's kind of a good time to do that. But
yeah.
Well, if this is your first time tuning in to Airtime Traveler, first of all, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Here at the Roller Coaster History Podcast, obviously we do roller coaster history, but rather than do the history of the roller coaster in general, we like to pick one roller coaster and do a deep dive into the history of that roller coaster. So I'm a roller coaster enthusiast and have been for a long time, and my wife Haley is a member of the GP, or the general public, and so I'm here to do the research and to tell the stories, and she's here to sneeze and to... The timing of that is pretty incredible, so...
I'm still in my nose.
Another one coming?
I don't know.
She's here to listen and to make me more interesting.
That's one way to make you interesting.
Yeah, that definitely made things interesting for a second there. So.
Sorry.
Oh, that's funny. So, yeah, that's kind of how we do things here. So, now I told Haley, and if you are a coaster enthusiast, you're well aware of this, but there's been quite the drama in the coaster enthusiast community the past couple weeks since we last recorded. It had kind of been starting to bubble to the surface. I may have even mentioned it in passing in that episode. I can't remember now, but I've had non-enthusiast friends and family ask me about this. Like, that's how widespread this story is becoming, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know. Haley may have heard of this. She may have not, but she didn't. She didn't bring it up because she probably figured we'd be talking about it. Yeah. So I don't know if she knows about this or not. But so over the past, I want to say month, there's been rumors circulating about Six Flags Great Adventure removing King Ka, which at the moment is the tallest roller coaster in the world.
You did mention that in passing.
Did I mention it in passing? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and it's been the tallest roller coaster in the world for almost 20 years now. Opened in 2005. And this is kind of, a lot of people consider that coaster kind of the last coaster that was opened as part of the Coaster Wars. Basically, after that, Cedar Point opened Maverick, which was tiny in comparison, but a lot of people say is better. And I think that's when parks kind of realized, we don't need to go bigger to be better. Right. And so they stopped building things as big as King Ka. But yeah, I think it's 128. This is off the top of my head, so I might be wrong on this, but I think 128 mile per hour, 456 foot tall coaster.
Nope.
In New Jersey. So.
Nope.
absolute monster
Yeah,
of
that
a roller
sounds
coaster. not Haley's cup of tea.
Not GP approved.
That's not true. There's plenty of GP that ride every single
Not
day.
this GP.
Not all of them, that's for sure. But I personally have never had a chance to go to Six Flags Great Adventure, so I've never been able to ride King to Cobb, which is kind of unfortunate. But I've heard lots of good things about it. Some people say it's better than the original Top Thrill Dragster. Some people disagree. I don't know. It's kind of,
Yeah.
it's whatever. So
Yeah.
it's taller than Top Thrill Dragster was. It's faster, but Top Thrill Dragster had lap bars where King to Cobb doesn't. So I don't know. Pick your poison.
True.
So anyway, Top Thrill Dragster had a lot of issues. We've talked about that on the show. There was an incident where a woman was standing in line, got hit by a piece of the coaster that flew off.
Mm-hmm.
That coaster closed, reopened with they completely overhauled it, reopened for a week, and then had more issues, and it's now closed again. We've been all over the Top Thrill 2 storyline. So anyway. So that coaster's been having problems. So then these rumors started surfacing that King to Ka was going to get removed. Well, these rumors like this happen a lot.
Yeah.
Where, like last year there was a rumor that Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa was going to get removed, and that hasn't really come to fruition at all, and that rumor has kind of died out. So like sometimes it just happens. Sometimes there's rumors and there's nothing behind them, but there's a significant amount of coaster influencers and some that have a lot of credibility. Like we've talked about El Toro Ryan on this show a lot because he does some really good deep dives into the operations and history of some of the coasters that we've talked about. So I've used his videos a lot because, there's just a lot of good information there. And he used to work at Six Flags Great Adventure. Which is where El Toro is. Like, that's where his username, his handle comes from. So
makes sense.
So he has connections at the park, and so these rumors have been circulating, and people are kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then he came out and said, basically, yeah, that's actually what I'm hearing too.
Ooh, I don't like that.
And so everyone's like, whoa. Like when
back up,
I didn't believe the rumors until he said something, and I'm like, whoa, like he's a very credible source.
Right.
And so then Coaster Studios came out and said they were hearing the same thing. Like, just a lot of people that have a lot of connections in the industry are saying that. And so the rumor continued to grow, and some people were hearing that. What day was it? The 10th, November 10th was going to be the last day that it was open. So, mind you, as all of this is going on, nothing from the park. Absolutely no announcement, nothing.
I hate that. I hate that the parks do that. Like, obviously they're aware that people are talking. Mm-hmm. And it's like nothing. Nothing is...
One way or the other. No, nothing from the park. So this continues to grow, and a lot of the influencers are saying, all of us are going up on the 10th to get our last rides in. That's going to be the last day it's open. And so there was like a huge crowd of enthusiasts that turned out on Sunday to get to ride King to Ka, and there's no official word yet, but because it's just the end of the season, I think. So we're just kind of waiting now to see what happens.
So strange.
And now the drama is coming in. So first of all, there's that going on, but there's also other coasters that are rumored to be closing. So there's one right next to it called Green Lantern, which is a stand-up coaster.
Yeah.
That's been there for a long time. That is also rumored to be closing. Along with a couple flat rides that are over in that area too.
Okay.
And then over at Six Flags over Texas, apparently they just closed their bobsled coaster without any kind of warning. And then people are seeing markers like spray paint markers on the ground by two of the coasters over at Carowinds. So there's like just all over the place.
Right. What the heck?
And you'll notice all three of the parks we just talked about, all part of that new Cedar Fair Six Flags merged chain.
Yes. Yep.
So that's where we're at. We have no other confirmation except for earlier today. So I'm kind of dating when this is being recorded, but earlier today, there were permits filed by Six Flags Great Adventure to tear down Green Lantern, but not King Ka.
That's not confusing.
It is very odd. So Green Lantern is definitely gone. I don't know if it's going to be scrapped or sold or moved to another park. It's a pretty it's a big coaster.
I was gonna say, yeah, we've talked about Green Lantern.
Well, there's a few Green Lantern coasters, so I don't know if we've talked about this one in particular, but it's a big coaster. I mean, it's 4,200 feet and 5 inversions. Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could send that coaster to, like, Michigan's Adventure, and it'd be one of the top 3 coasters there.
Right.
Like, so it'd be a little strange for them to just completely dismantle it. And, I mean, to be fair, this is already its 2nd park, so I guess if you moved it again, that'd be its 3rd park, which isn't unheard of.
I was going to say that's not unheard of.
Especially for Six Flags, but... So, I don't know what the plan is there. And the Carowinds ones, those are really more of a rumor than any of the other stuff, because it's just markers on the ground.
That's what I'm saying, is I don't like that they spray painted the ground. It's like, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, so I don't know what that is. The 2 coasters they sprayed it by are older coasters too. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, I don't know where to go from here, honestly. You know, there's a lot of drama between people on Twitter too, because there's a lot of people are saying that the influencers are just trying to clickbait people, and that's why they're spreading these rumors. And I'm like, there's some influencers I'm familiar with that I know would do that. But El Toro Ryan is not one of those. Like, I haven't met him personally, but
We want to. That'd be cool.
But, like, I've interacted with him on social media, and I've interacted with other people that know him fairly well.
Yeah.
I get just with my brief interactions with him, I get the feeling that, like, he doesn't really care, like, about getting attention from other people.
Right.
So, like, the only reason for him to post that is because he genuinely wants people to go get their last rides in, because, you know, he cares about that park, because he worked there for a long time.
Right.
So, I'm still kind of feeling like the rumors are probably true, at least for Six Flags Great Adventure. I don't know about the other ones. So, yeah, is this going to be the new Six Flags? Is this going to be the new trend? Is the new Six Flags tear out coasters that cost too much money and just scrap them? I sure hope not, but it was what I was worried about when we talked about this merger, right? We said that, like, you know, some people like, oh, you know, it's not a monopoly. Like, they still got SeaWorld competing with them. But, like, this was what I was afraid of. This, you know, when there's not competition, like, you can just...
do whatever you want.
Yeah, because, I mean, King Ka's competition was Top Thrill Dragster. Those are part of the same chain now. So is that really competition anymore?
Guess not.
I don't know. I don't know if that counts. They're far enough apart that I would assume you could keep both of them, but that's not what it looks like right now.
So dumb.
Now, to be fair, I don't know. There is the possibility that King Ka is just being converted just the same way that Top Thrill Dragster was. Maybe that's what's happening.
I could see that.
And honestly, I would be okay with that. I prefer the hydraulic launches because I'm a sucker for Storm Runner and Accelerator and some of those other ones. But if it's a decision between the coaster being demolished and having the launch converted into something cheaper and easier to maintain, obviously you'll take the second of those 2 options. Right. So it is what it is. But
can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, that's what's been going on in the industry the past couple weeks, and
that is drama.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's very drama.
So I posted something a few days ago where it's basically like a quote of, like, I think I put in quotation marks, the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger will be a big win for the industry. And then I had the 4 ride signs for those 4 coasters we talked about, and I had demolition signs hanging on all 4 of them.
That's terrible.
But it's true. That post has almost 300 likes and has been seen by 15,000 people already.
Wow.
It's our most engaged with post we've ever had. So you can tell people are heated about this. So it's, one way or the other, right?
Right.
Whether it's they're angry with the enthusiasts or they're angry with, or not the enthusiasts, angry with the influencers and think they're lying, or the opposite. They believe the influencers, which means they're upset with the park for not announcing any of this. That's the other thing with all of this, right?
Yeah.
Why? We've talked about this before.
Take deep breaths.
Deep cleansing breaths. We've talked about this before, though, with Fire in the Hole, Silver Dollar City announcing it in February and then closing it in December. Like, almost a whole year for people to come and get their last rides in. And I've posed that to some people on social media about why didn't Six Flags consider that for King Ka, at least from what the rumors say. And some people are like, well, it's from a PR standpoint, it makes more sense to just bury it instead of just, selling a few extra t-shirts and Christmas ornaments. And I'm like,
It's not the point.
But that's the thing,
that's
the thing is like, I understand what,
it's nostalgic.
I understand what PR,
whatever
would tell you. Like, if you're reading a PR textbook, what that's going to tell you to do in this situation. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't seem like that much more effort to give the coaster a proper send-off. Like, to me, like, someone was saying, like, the proper PR thing to do is just bury it and not talk about it. But would I rather someone not talk about something that's happening, or would I rather them acknowledge it but do it in a good way? Like, was I happy Silver Dollar City was closing the original Fire in the Hole? No. I was pretty sad about it. Now, they replaced it with a brand new version, which, I don't think that's obvious. That's obviously not what's happening at Six Flags Great Adventure. But the thought process is like, they still were able to close the ride. They didn't get a lot of backlash from it because they gave it a proper send-off. Some people were upset about it, but not, like, most people understood.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I think just transparency is a thing that's lost on a lot of the parks nowadays.
I agree.
And it's really frustrating, honestly. Nope. So,
I
hate that we have to find this stuff out from some sources that some people trust and some people don't. Like, if the park came out and said something, everyone would be like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
But because we have to trust these quote-unquote rumors, it's like, I don't know, it's more dramatic than it needs to be. Like, if Six Flags Great Adventure could have come out in February and said, King Ka is going to be closing on November 10th. Come and get your last rides in. And everyone would have
sold more tickets.
Well, everyone would have been really sad, but to be honest, we may have made it out to Six Flags Great Adventure this year if they had done that. I probably would have said, let's put Busch Gardens on hold and go to Six Flags Great Adventure instead. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
People prioritize their trips off of things that are happening.
Yeah, I know people that came to Silver Dollar City for the first time because they wanted to get that Fire in the Hole credit.
Right.
Now, at the end of the day, I know I'm an enthusiast, and enthusiasts make up a small percentage of the actual people going to the park. And so that's probably why...
Yeah, I'm speaking more from your experience.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, and I know that I'm not their target audience. So maybe from a PR standpoint for the GP, maybe it makes more sense to do it the way they're doing it. But I just don't see it that way. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. I've ranted about this enough. We'll see what happens in the coming months and what they will actually do. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into our topic for today. So.
Okay.
We're going back to Cedar Point today.
Okay.
So this is the coaster capital of the world. So our last Cedar Point episode was earlier this year. We did Magnum XL 200. I think that was like our third or fourth episode this year. So you can go check that one out if you want to. We're talking about a much much less popular coaster at the park today, but one that has a really interesting story and I feel doesn't get enough attention or credit. So we are talking about Rougarou at Cedar Point today.
That's one I did not go on, though, huh? Yeah.
Yes, so because this is so it's a B&M floorless coaster, very similar to like Wildfire at Silver Dollar City, which has those over the shoulder restraints that drive you crazy. So
True.
so yeah, I wasn't. Me and my dad went on this one, but I wasn't like. I knew you would probably be kind of about this one, so
right.
Now, you did ride Dominator at King's Dominion, though, and that one you did enjoy. So that one's newer than this one is, so it's probably smoother. But anyway,
enjoy or tolerate?
I don't know. That was 3 years ago, so it's hard to know what your opinion was. So
it was more tolerate.
Okay. So. All right. Opened in 1996 at a cost of $12 million. I should have adjusted that for inflation. It's probably somewhere in the 16 to 20 range, somewhere in there, I would guess.
Okay.
3,900 feet long, 145 feet tall, with a top speed of 60 miles per hour. 4 inversions. Average 2024 wait time, 21 minutes. So not bad. So.
Not a decent.
It's actually higher than I expected it. Now, granted, the only time I've been to Cedar Point was the crowds were, from my understanding, the crowds were pretty low because we literally walked on to Rougarou when we were there. So I guess it makes sense that probably during the busier times of the year there's like a little bit more. In the CoasterBot rankings, it ranks at number 182 in the country. So not super high, still in the top 200, but just barely. Ranks below coasters such as Medusa at Six Flags Great Adventure, Wildfire at Silver Dollar City, and Hydra the Revenge at Dorney Park. It ranks above coasters such as Scream at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Batman the Dark Knight at Six Flags New England, and Patriot at California's Great America. At Cedar Point, it ranks 8th. It's just crazy.
I mean,
like,
yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah,
but like, it's just funny. Like, if you put Rougarou at, I don't know, if you like I said earlier, if you put I said, which one was it? I was saying, Green Lantern. If you put that at Michigan's Adventure, it'd be the top 3. Yeah. Same with Rougarou. You put Rougarou at Michigan's Adventure, it'd be 2nd or 3rd in the park.
Right. It's just because this is the coaster capital of the world.
It's at Cedar Point. So, so it goes Steel Vengeance at 1, Maverick, Millennium Force, Magnum XL200 at 4, then Raptor 5, Gatekeeper, and Valraven at 6 and 7. Rougarou comes in at 8. Gemini at 9, Blue Streak at 10, Iron Dragon at 11, and then I had to cut my list off because it's so long for Cedar Point, so the other coasters fall below that.
But they're kiddie coasters, the ones that are below that, aren't they?
I mean,
the 2 of them
are. Some of them are, but there's also Corkscrew and Cedar Creek Mine Ride, so
True.
But review of the name. I'm curious what your opinion of the name is.
I don't know what Rougarou means.
That's an excellent point. And that's kind of like between Valraven and Rougarou, like they're
I at least have a little bit of an idea of what a Valraven is, but not a ton.
Yeah, I mean, there's a raven in the logo, so you're kind of like, okay, is it like some mythological ravens, something like Rougarou, and this kind of touches on the logo, but I mean, Rougarou, there's just the set of eyes and then like claw scratches in the logo. So you're like, okay, it's some Rougarou? Kind of beast of some kind.
Yeah.
So we'll talk in the episode about what a Rougarou is. So, but
it's an actual thing.
Define what an actual thing is. It's not a real thing. It is a...
They didn't come up with it?
They didn't come up with it.
Okay.
So, yeah. So...
All right.
Yeah. I don't know why. Well, I don't know what Cedar Point's thing is with mythological creatures. So I mean, Gatekeeper is themed to like a I think it's a griffin, the bird that's in the logo for Gatekeeper, and then there's Valraven and Rougarou. Like I don't know. That's just kind of all those coasters on the Midway. It's just kind of the theme they've gone with. I don't know why, but.
There's someone that really likes mythological creatures or something.
So coaster names are an interesting thing. Like Six Flags Great America is opening a coaster this year called Wrath of Rakshasa, which is
excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. Which what is I forgot what is Rakshasa? I think it's like
it sounds like a sneeze.
Rakshasa. Oh dear. That's all I'm going to be able to think about now. Oh. Rakshasa are a race of usually malevolent beings prominently featured in Hindu mythology.
Wow.
What? That is interesting.
That is, yeah.
So,
something.
like I said, coaster names are interesting. Sometimes the park comes up with something and you're like, what in the where did they get that from?
Where did they come up with that?
So that's an interesting
That's
one.
a new one.
Review the paint scheme and the trains.
I mean, it goes with the sign.
Yeah, it does. I do.
Rougarou is,
yeah, I do like the lime green on the trains. Very much fits in with the logo. So the orange and the turquoise looks really nice together. So yeah, it's a solid paint scheme. Looks good. Here's the park's description of the ride.
Here we go.
As soon as you're strapped in, the floor drops out completely. The first floorless coaster at Cedar Point. Rougarou isn't just a fable of the imagination. It twists and turns prove its fear-inducing story is larger than life. After the initial shock, this coaster roars to life as your feet dangle in midair. Watch your feet as you travel at top speeds, being chased through the swamp it has habituated since 2015.
It's a really long description. I'm going to cut it off there. Well, because it some of these descriptions, it starts to go through the layouts.
Scream all you want. It
just makes the predator stronger. Whoa.
No wonder.
Its howls will follow you around all day. Wow.
So spooky.
Spoopy.
Spoopy.
Customer reviews. This has
Let's go.
Yeah. I missed being able to do this in our last episode, so I'm gonna bring it back. This one has a 4.2 out of 5 on Google reviews, which is on the lower side of some of the coasters we've talked about for sure. Here's some good reviews though. Here's 5 stars. Saw someone say this ride is rough on shorter people. This is my favorite ride and I am 4'10". I love this ride so much and I'm a scaredy cat for roller coasters. I feel bad for the people who hate this ride because it is amazing.
That's a very fun-sized person.
5 star. To everyone giving bad reviews, this coaster is rough on shorter individuals. So this must be the guy the other one was talking about.
Watch them be a couple.
I am 6'4" and my brother's 6'3", and we love Rougarou. It's a smooth and comfortable ride for taller individuals, where those under 6 foot tend to say it's a rougher ride. I do see what they're saying because, if you're taller, then the shoulder restraints, you won't actually bang your head on them. But when you're my height and shorter, they're up by your head instead of just on your shoulders. So yes, exactly. So here's another 5 star. This is my new favorite ride. It's full of twists and turns and gives you amazing views at the landscape. The drops are such a thrill and the flips are so fun. Many say the ride is rough, but it has improved greatly. I feel so safe and secure, no whiplash either. There you go. Alright, so now for the bad. Here's 1 star. This coaster is worse than the kiddie coasters at Cedar Point. They changed it from the Mantis to try and make it better, and it somehow got worse.
Oh.
If you want to know what it feels to get a headache and whiplash in 2 minutes, then this roller coaster with this trash name is for you.
Trash name.
I like the little dig at the coaster's name at the very end of the review. This trash name.
dumb name.
Here's one
I hate
star.
this coaster so much.
Here's one.
And its dumb name too.
Here's 1 star. Did someone throw my body into a washing machine?
Oh.
Wow. Well, tell me how you really feel. 1 star. My wife and I rode this coaster on August 30th, 2021, and it beat me up. Felt like just went 2 rounds in an MMA ring.
Did you win?
I had to take a break from coasters for 5 hours.
No, he lost.
I give Rougarou a big thumbs down.
Oh.
Wow. 1 star. This thing goes way too fast, too uppy and downy. Only.
Use that from now on.
Too uppy and downy.
Uppy and downy.
Only fools wanting to meet their maker should ride.
I really like this description. Even though it's negative, I'm digging this.
I'm happy holding the wife's purse as she rides. Yes, that is great.
What's the actor that feels that way too? And he posted a picture of him at Disney World holding all the bags, and he's like, "I'm happy to hold."
I have no idea.
It was who we met at,
Kevin James?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. He rode Lightning Racer
I
with
know,
him.
but he usually doesn't ride rides. We've had this conversation.
I don't remember.
He has a picture on his Instagram at him at Disney World holding all the purses, and he's like the official purse holder because he doesn't like riding the roller coasters.
That's weird because we literally saw him riding a roller coaster.
Beats me. I don't know.
Oh, well, not a ton of customer reviews today, but some really funny ones in there. So.
Yeah, those are very. I liked those. Those were really funny.
Too uppy and downy.
Too uppy.
I was gonna close on the one with about throwing the body into a washing machine, and then when I found the one just too uppy and downy, I'm like, no, you gotta close with that one. That's hilarious.
It's gonna be my new description.
All right, well, that's our introduction to Rougarou. Let's talk about the history. So let's
buckle up.
Hop into our time machine, pull down on the lap bar, keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the time machine at all times. And let's go back to 1983. All right, we are now going to talk about a coaster, just very briefly, that we've talked about. This will be the 3rd time we've talked about this coaster this season.
Okay.
I didn't plan it that way. It just happens to be related to the history of 3 other coasters that we talked about this season. And we literally just talked about it in our last episode. But it's EXT at Worlds of Fun.
That's so funny.
I know. I just didn't even think about that the way I played these episodes.
It's just
but
a very, he
just
wants all the love.
Just tied into all these other coasters' history.
Just wants all the history love.
It's really brief here, though. So, because basically we're only talking about this one because this was the very first stand-up coaster in the country, which we talked about last week. So, it was originally built in 1976 as Scream Roller. And after Orient Express opened, they converted this into the very first stand-up coaster in the United States. And the reception was absolutely terrible. Like aerodynamics hadn't done this before, and they were trying something different. And in theory, the idea is good, but the execution was just really poor, and it was just causing tons of technical issues because the new trains were heavier. And the braking system was having problems. It was just a mess. So it was only a stand-up coaster for 1 year, and then they switched it back to a sit-down coaster the following year.
Interesting.
So the enthusiasts that have an EXT credit that's a very rare credit. That's a very rare credit.
You need to frame your credit.
So
I wrote EXT standing up.
Yeah. So that was the very first stand-up coaster in 1983 in the States. There were some overseas that opened before that. But so in the years that followed, there were some other stand-up coasters that opened from other companies. That would end up being Aerodynamics' only stand-up coaster they ever built.
Really?
Which is fascinating because Aerodynamics really got into all kinds of things. But I guess they tried the stand-up thing one time and it didn't work. And they're like, okay, I guess we can't do that. We give up. So the next year, in 1984, at Kings Island, they opened King Cobra. So not very big, but it was much better received than EXT was, and actually operated at the park for quite a long time. It was built by Togo, which we've talked about a few times. They don't have a great reputation nowadays. They're a Japanese company that doesn't do business in the U.S. anymore, but they still built stuff overseas in Japan. So they would open King Cobra at Kings Island in 1984, and then they actually opened 2 others at Canada's Wonderland and Kings Dominion, which were sister parks to Kings Island. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, those Paramount parks are all kind of using Togo for their new stand-up coasters. Now, over at Six Flags, in 1986, so 2 years later, Six Flags Magic Mountain opens Shockwave, which is this black one right here. And
I think black roller coasters are so, I don't know, I like the way they look.
I was curious where that comment was going. I was wondering if you were going to say they look great, or I think black coasters look so dull.
No, well, it depends on where they're at, because like that one's really up against like some more brown, like that hill up on the backside.
Mm-hmm.
It looks striking.
Yeah, it looks good. I like black,
especially with the red train.
With the red train, yeah. I do think if you have a black coaster, you definitely have to have a train that contrasts well with it. So.
Well, and like if you have a black coaster in the middle of the woods, but have a really striking train, like that'd be cool.
No.
Like, or even like a train that like lit up, so all you see is the train. That would be cool.
I don't think anybody's ever done like a light up train that's out in the woods. It's kind of interesting.
That would be so cool. Sorry. Continue.
So Intamin would only make 3 stand-up coasters ever.
Okay.
Shockwave is the most famous because it bounced around so many times. So was it Six Flags Magic Mountain from 86 to 88, Six Flags Great Adventure from 90 to 92, Six Flags Astro World from 93 to 2005.
You weren't kidding.
No, yeah. We talked about the Six Flags, what's it called? The I can't remember the official name for it, but basically the ride swap, where they would send rides to multiple parks, right? This ride was definitely part of that system. And then finally I went to Six Flags Darien Lake in 2006, but then they never built it. It just sat there in storage for 11 years before they finally scrapped it. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Intamin really hasn't gotten into the stand-up coaster thing ever since. So.
Huh. Okay.
So then Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America in 1990. This was B&M's attempt at the stand-up coaster, and it was actually B&M's first coaster ever. So it's kind of interesting. They started with stand-up coasters. So it's probably the best received of the stand-up models too. B&M has always been known for how smooth their coasters are. That's, where they have really become such a successful manufacturers, because of how smooth their coasters are. And so that's always been a kind of staple of their company. And so Iron Wolf was really popular, and so kind of started to take off. So in 1991, California's Great America would open a very similar size model called Vortex. And then in 1992, Carowinds also bought one, also named Vortex, which that now means that, very creative.
So creative.
So that now means all 5 of the Paramount parks all have stand-up coasters.
Named Vortex.
No, I actually don't know what the ones at Canada's Wonderland and Kings Dominion were named. Actually, I think I'd have to look it up, because the 3 that were at, so they got 3 from Togo first. So they built King Cobra at Kings Island, and then Canada's Wonderland, Kings Dominion. I don't know which came first, but then they switched to B&M for California's Great America and Carowinds. So I don't know if they were unhappy with how the Togo ones were doing, or if they just saw how well B&M's was received at Six Flags and decided to switch, but kind of interesting. So that brings us to 1995. Now, at this point, now we're going to head over to Cedar Point.
Okay.
They're finding their footing as a record-breaking coaster park. It really started with Corkscrew in 1976, and obviously has continued to this day.
Yeah, I mean,
so like
it still continues.
Oh yeah, so like Corkscrew was in 76 first coaster with 3 inversions. Gemini in 78 was the tallest drop in the world. Magnum XL 200 in 89 was the first 200-foot coaster. Mean Streak in 91, tallest wooden coaster in the world. Raptor in 94, tallest and fastest inverted coaster in the world. So you get the picture, right? Everything they build is the tallest or the fastest or the biggest. You know, that's just how Cedar Point, you know, found their footing, and as that's how they became successful. That's how they
breaking records is their thing.
Yeah, that's how they found success in the amusement industry, definitely. So as all these stand-up coasters are getting more and more popular, that's kind of where Cedar Point was looking at their lineup and said, maybe that's where our next record-breaking coaster needs to be. So on September 8th, 1995, Cedar Point announced Banshee, the world's tallest, fastest, and longest stand-up coaster to be manufactured by B&M. Now, you're probably wondering, Banshee?
Yeah, I was going to say, why are we talking about
Hold up. That's not at Cedar Point.
No. Was it? Did it used to be at Cedar Point?
What, the one that's at Kings Island?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, because...
okay.
Yeah, because the one at Kings Island, that one's an inverted coaster. This one's a stand-up coaster, so they're totally different.
What the? Okay.
So, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
With Raptor also being built by B&M, it's possible that these two were bought in a bundle, but I can't confirm that. Because they were built back-to-back, and they're both B&M, so...
Right.
I don't know. I'm not positive on that, but it's possible.
Okay.
So Banshee was set to be substantially larger than any of the 3 previous stand-up coasters that B&M had done. Just comparing it to Vortex at Carowinds, which was the most recent one they had done, nearly twice as long, 10 miles per hour faster, 55 feet taller, and twice as many inversions. So it was just
a lot of records that
they basically just said, B&M, we want to go all out with this stand-up coaster. We don't want to be just like a little bit bigger than the other ones. Like,
make it
let's
big.
make this. let's go
big
all
and
out with that one.
Big.
So that's Banshee. So everyone's excited about Banshee. Here's the article here. Cedar Point plans tallest, fastest coaster, which is a very misleading title because it's not the tallest or fastest. It's the tallest and fastest stand-up coaster. That's a big difference.
They always do
They
that.
really do. This is
That's
1995 clickbait.
That's terrible, but it's
very true. So here's a little snippet here. Dubbed the Banshee after the wailing ghosts of Irish lore, the ride is the largest investment in the park's history. So there you go. So 6 days later, Cedar Point announces that they are renaming Banshee to something else. 6 days later.
Oh.
Okay. Here's the article here. This is still so funny to me. Cedar Point banishes Banshee coaster name.
Banishes Banshee.
So here's the park said it was naming the ride after the wailing ghosts of Irish lore, but the dictionary paints a different tale of the word. Banshee, according to the dictionary, is a female spirit believed to wail outside a house as a warning that a death will occur soon in the family. The name did not fit the ride nor the park, spokesman Steve Norton said, so the ride is getting a new name. It's so funny to me. So from my understanding, what happened was they announced this, and then someone, like a local newspaper, wrote about the name and kind of shed some light on the more darker side of the name. And so Cedar Point was like,
no,
we're gonna go a different way with this one. So here's from the park quote: some of the connotation associated with the original name may be inappropriate to some of our guests. All right then. So I also saw another article where the one of the park officials basically said, because they had a ride called Demon Drop at this point, and which, I mean, that's not exactly family friendly either. But the article basically said something to the effect of like, People are more politically correct nowadays than when we opened Demon Drop in 1983.
Can you imagine something being called that now?
Being called what?
Demon Drop.
Oh, there's Demon Drop still. It's not at Cedar Point. It's at Dorney Park nowadays.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's Six Flags Great America and California's Great America both have a roller coaster called Demon.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm serious.
It is kind of interesting, right?
I don't know. I don't like that, actually. That's how I feel about that. I don't like it.
It's a little dark, isn't it?
It's dark. This is not uplifting whatsoever.
What's the other? Six Flags Great Adventure has one called Jersey Devil, which I guess that's kind of like a New Jersey thing, but anyway.
I guess,
So.
but still.
It's pretty funny. So yeah, so Cedar Point, they're like, okay, we're not going to do this Banshee name. And they basically said, what was it? Oh, where is it here? I should have marked this article here. Oh, here it is. Park executives are mulling over a list of several hundred prospective names for the ride. A new name will be picked within the next few weeks. Wow. I want to see that list of names because that is so...
Names for some other
Yes.
coasters that are not good?
That is so many names to be sorting through. That's crazy. So
Watch them still be sorting it. They just haven't picked one yet, and they just went with the top one on the list. This works!
Here's another quote here. We thought the mystical, spiritual aspect of the name lent itself very well to the ride, especially with the lagoon area of the park and the setting. But shortly after the announcement, we had some second thoughts, he said. All right, so there's that. So
Okay.
now the funny part about this is, look at this. This is super weird to see. Look at this Banshee logo. So this is the logo for Banshee at Cedar Point. This is a logo for a ride that never happened.
Actually full on terrifying.
And you can buy t-shirts with this logo on it. Not at the park. Cedar Point doesn't sell it, but like people have custom made t-shirts with this logo on it, which is just kind of a funny little thing that they've done. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Now,
so which one's the current?
So this is the logo for Banshee at Kings Island.
Right.
Which is funny that, back in, 1996.
No, we've done an episode on Banshee.
Yes, we've done an episode on Banshee. We've actually talked about this. We talked about this in our Banshee episode.
I was going to say, this all sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's why it does, because we did talk about this in our Banshee episode. Okay. But, yeah, so they did end up using the name almost 20 years later, which is just funny that, 1995 people were freaking out about the name, and I guess 2013 people were
it's
like,
it's all right.
That's
all
fine.
right now.
I personally have no problem with the name Banshee. To me, it's just like a ghost, right? It's fine by me. So they also reused the logo, not reused, but they kind of repurposed the logo for Steel Force at Dorney Park, which opened the following year in 1997. Yeah, so
okay.
So there you go, little backstory there. So the coaster does not have a name at this point. So Cedar Point's mulling over a new name. The coaster starts construction. These are like, I couldn't find actual photos, but these are screenshots from like a VHS tape of construction of the ride, which is pretty funny.
Love that.
So isn't that great? Like you can see like the lines across the screen and stuff. It's pretty funny. So finally, in December 1995, the new name was announced to be Mantis, after the imposing creature known as the most voracious predator of the insect world.
What?
It is an interesting name. I give them credit for I gotta give them creativity points on that one. So.
Do you really though?
I mean, is there any other insect-themed roller coasters out there?
I guess not.
You ready to watch an announcement video? This might be my favorite announcement video we've ever watched.
Yes!
It is... I'm not going to play the whole thing, because the whole thing is 4 minutes long.
What?
Okay, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. But I am going to play probably 2.5 minutes of this, because this is just... absolutely ridiculous, and it's total 90s, right?
Yes.
Okay, you ready for this?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Give it to me.
It all began innocently enough. A scientific experiment to give man control over a population of certain insect species. A slight alteration to the ecosystem for the benefit of humankind. Ironically, our answer came from nature herself, the mantis. An awe-inspiring contradiction of beauty and brutality, reverence and repugnance. Ferocious carnivore that captures its unwitting prey, devours it, then searches for more. We discovered that by increasing the mantis's appetite, we could stop the world's most damaging
So
insects.
intense.
We basked in the glory of our victory.
Oh.
However, it was short-lived.
He's a really good actor.
We
He's
failed to
freaking me out,
realize that
man.
when faced with a lack of prey, the mantis turns on its own species. The unthinkable occurred.
The sweat on his chin.
Entire mantis population.
It's like sweating. Like, what is happening?
Totally used a spray bottle. Here, make you sweat.
Now a monstrous, mutated form of mantis roams free. Carnivorous beast driven by an insatiable appetite for... An appetite no longer satisfied as easily as its predecessors. Now mantis wants more. It hides in the foggy, dank darkness, silently stalking its prey.
Ooh.
Until with a lightning-swift motion, mantis seizes its victim, clutching it in a vice-like grip. Still standing upright, the hapless victim is flung rapidly and mercilessly into the air in every imaginable direction. Dropped. Thrown. Tossed around and around like a toy.
I just realized who this guy reminds me of. My dad.
Until it's disoriented and defenseless. And succumbs. Unable to stand anymore.
Oh.
I wish we...
Okay, I'm gonna cut it off there. It's just it keeps going after that. I'm like,
going?
what is happening? Why is this so long? Eventually, it
These
does.
are the best.
Eventually, it does. Like here, it announces the name and the. There you go,
That's
Mantis.
so...
And the tagline. Oh, does it have the? Oh, the tagline's at the end, I think. Where is it? Yeah, here.
Okay.
Mantis. How much can you stand?
Okay. That's terrible.
Wow, that is something else. I don't think we've ever watched a coaster announcement quite like that
That was
before.
intense. That was full on intense.
Like it still cracks me with the sweat down his brow. Like,
made me cringe. I was
Oh,
like, ew,
man.
I don't want to see that.
oh, that's crazy. So, you'll also see in this announcement that they revealed the layout of the ride and kind of some of the elements that were going to be as part of the attraction. 20% of the layout would be over the water, which is kind of interesting, including 2 of the 4 inversions. Construction completed in January of 1996, and I have construction stats again.
Really?
And I have, this is more construction stats than I've ever had before.
Yes!
You ready for this?
Yes.
So first of all, it was 12 months of design and development.
Oh, months?
So they spent a whole year working on the layout and the location and the elements and all these different things.
I respect that. Okay.
So then actual construction, 117 pieces of track, 122 support columns, 865 tons of steel. They were working off of 427 blueprints, 14,864 bolts.
Where did you get all these?
It was from a newspaper article that I read. So
that's cool.
2,500 yards of concrete, 1,700 gallons of paint.
The paint one is always
Isn't
the one
that
that catches
crazy?
me up.
So,
I'm like, that's wild.
And then get this, the chain that is used on the chain lift, 694 feet long and weighs 6 tons.
What?
Just the chain.
The chain. insane. That's crazy.
And then they have 3 trains, each weighing 9 tons. That's crazy.
I want to know,
yeah.
if you took everything apart, scrapped it all, how much would the whole thing weigh? That's what I want to know.
Well, I mean, it says here 865 tons of steel. I imagine that probably doesn't include the train. So you're looking 900 to 1,000 tons of steel between this whole thing.
So wild.
It's pretty crazy. So construction completes and they began testing shortly thereafter. Now I've got 2 commercials to watch as well. These are much shorter. These are only 30 because these are
they as intense?
One of them's. I mean, it's the 90s. What do you expect? So, but these are real short. These are just 30-second.
Have nightmares.
These are just 30-second.
You're gonna give me nightmares.
These are just 30-second TV
Let's
adverts.
do it.
So, okay, here's the first one.
Okay.
Step on this one and you'll find out. The highest, fastest, steepest stand-up roller coaster in the world. How much can you stand?
The guy screaming.
Well, get to the point. All right, this one's odd. I'm just gonna say that up front. You ready?
Sure.
Boy, are you ugly. Lucky? Should I or shouldn't I? Hey! Where do you think you're going?
Ever wonder why you're not supposed to step on a mantis?
Yeah, you better say your prayers.
On May 11th, you'll find out.
What did I just watch?
This is very odd.
What the heck, Nathan?
I'm pretty sure that mantis ate him. I think that's what happened.
That's terrible. Well, that's what they kind of hinted at.
Yeah, it's definitely into that for sure.
What the heck? That's so... And they were worried about Banshee being terrifying?
How intense would the commercial have been if they had gone with Banshee?
They couldn't max it. They were like,
wouldn't be able to air it.
Nope. They were like, nope, we gotta go with Mantis and make it terrifying.
Mantis would officially open to the public on May 11th, 1996. The ride experience was as follows. After a slight left turn out of the station, riders begin the climb up the 145-foot tall lift hill. After a small pre-drop as the train makes a U-turn to the right, riders drop down the 137-foot first drop, hitting the top speed of 60 miles per hour. This leads directly into the 119-foot vertical loop, which is immediately followed by an ascent to the left and into the 103-foot tall dive loop. The train ascends into a large turnaround to the right directly over the station before diving back down to ground level and sailing through an 83-foot inclined loop to the left. After a turnaround to the right, the train travels through the mid-course brakes before descending into a small drop and through the final inversion, a corkscrew to the left. The train then traverses through a series of low-to-the-ground bank turns that are referred to as the Figure 8 finale. After one final bank turn to the right, the train hits the final brakes. So, there you go.
Good stuff.
Now, I gotta ask you,
Okay.
what do you think of this paint scheme?
It doesn't go with Mantis. Not even a little bit.
I hate to be blunt, but I think this paint scheme is hideous. It's like...
It looks like the
it,
primary colors are what?
it is red, yellow, and blue.
Yellow and blue.
It kind of it looks like it belongs in a Six Flags park. I don't know, like it almost looks like a Superman coaster, but the colors are in the wrong spot.
I'm trying to think what
You know
it
what I mean?
reminds me of.
I can't put my finger on it.
It is
like,
very 90s.
very 90s. Yeah, it's very colorful. So yeah, this is something else.
Well, the fact that it's all mismatched.
It's
The
very
the feng shui is totally off.
feng shui. don't think feng shui has to do with colors, but I get what you're saying.
It's totally off. It's messing up the vibe.
It was quite the paint scheme. So it's definitely eye-catching. I'll give it that.
Not in the best way, though.
Well, I didn't say in the best way. I just said it was eye-catching. Here's another newspaper article. This one actually is really interesting because this was like a 4-page spread all about not just the development of Mantis, but just roller coasters in general, but kind of using Mantis as a baseline for how other coasters are developed. So, and it was written by a coaster engineer, I think. So, and they kind of walked through like some of the things they did with Mantis to kind of give you an idea how that applies to other coasters. So it's a really long article. If you want to look it up, it's from May 12th, 1996, and it was in a paper called The Plain Dealer. I don't even know where that's from. It sounds like a Midwest newspaper. So just a couple excerpts from this that I find interesting. So talking about the investment of how much they paid for the coaster, this is what the park manager said. Whenever you put a $12 million coaster in, you expect to have a record year. The park began its commitment to having the most and best coasters in 1989 when it debuted Magnum XL 200. At the time, the tallest coaster in the world. Since then, it has opened a new or reworked coaster every year but 1992, 93, and 95 when it built other major rides. So just kind of interesting talking about how the park strategy kind of came into focus after Magnum XL 200. So this is also interesting. As much as 80% of Cedar Point visitors return each year. They would come back one year if there wasn't anything new, but they would not come back a second year. So their whole strategy was trying to have something big every other year because they kind of figured you can get them back 1 year with your new ride, but you can't get them to come back 2 years after a new ride is constructed. So they also talked about Cedar Point stays away from first-generation rides like the linear induction coaster opening this year at Kings Island downstate, talking about Flight of Fear because that opened that same summer as Mantis did. And so they talk about that. This quote is interesting. We'd rather let someone else take the research and development out of it and we'll benefit from enhanced versions.
Interesting.
That's kind of fascinating. That's not really what Cedar Point does nowadays because like Top Thrill 2 is a prototype model.
Yeah, I was going to say they're pretty innovative now.
But that is a fascinating idea though. It's kind of like rather than building the first of something, let's just wait and we'll build the best of something. It's kind of an interesting way of looking at it. So the article talks a little bit about how they not only design the coasters in a way to ride well, but they also want it to look pleasing. And so it talks about someone from B&M said the first step is kind of an artwork, a creative work. This quote here, Cedar Point prefers to locate its coasters as close to the customers as possible to entice riders and entertain those who would rather just watch. Thank you. So, I mean, I get that. I enjoy watching the coasters too, and I know people that don't want to ride them probably enjoy having something to watch, right? So,
I guess so, yeah. Especially in that era, because there wasn't like your cell phone.
Yeah. This is a little interesting piece, just talking about the how fast coaster technology developed between 1989 and 1996. I mean, this is only 7 years between Magnum XL 200 and where we're at now. This quote says, "When a crane lifted the last piece of track into place this winter, a piece of paper would not fit between the joints. By way of contrast, there was a foot gap between the final two pieces of track on the Magnum XL 200. That is crazy.
That's a really bad miscalculation.
That is really bad. And it's the difference between, like, in those 7 years, coaster design and all that kind of moved into the computer era, where everything prior to that had all been done by hand. Not just designing the coaster, but also constructing it. Like, everything was done by hand. And so that's why it's like a foot off instead of, like, down to the millimeter where you can get on a computer. And so that's why B&M was able to get so far ahead of aerodynamics, is because they really leaned into the computers and got their coasters just running smooth as glass. So one final quote from this article. This is really fascinating because
mind you, written in 1996, and this guy kind of predicts the future here. He said, quote, "I can imagine building coasters so high you'll need blinking lights on the top to keep planes from crashing into them. And it's only a matter of time, he believes, until coasters hook up with virtual reality to provide a ride beyond mere physics." Both of those things happened, which is crazy. Like, he just totally called both of those. So that's pretty wild. Kind of freaky, so. Well, it's just a coaster engineer knowing, like, seeing the industry and seeing the direction it's going and knowing what's going to happen.
I think he's a time traveler.
He's a time traveler, so.
Yep. That's my guess.
So, there you go. Fun little article there. So, if you want to read all of that, I already gave you the details. You can go and look it up for yourself. Now, it didn't take long for Mantis's records to be broken, because we are in the middle of the coaster wars at this point in time. So, 1997, Six Flags responds by opening Chang at Kentucky Kingdom. This B&M stand-up would break all of Mantis's records. It's 255 feet longer, 9 feet taller, 3 miles per hour faster, and an extra inversion. They're very similar, though, actually. Like, you know, you have the dive loop here, and then it goes into the overbank, and then into the inclined loop. So, like, the layouts are actually pretty similar. It's just mirrored. So now what's fascinating is this ride continues to operate as Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure, which we just talked about in the introduction to our episode today. This is the one that just got filed today to be deconstructed at the park. It's pretty weird that we're talking about it today. Weird. So.
Is it a coincidence?
I don't know.
I think not.
I really hope someone said they should send it back to Kentucky Kingdom.
I don't want this coaster no more.
You can have it back.
Give it.
You can have a return. As time goes by, stand-up coasters begin to be less and less common. The B&M models were holding up fairly well, but the Togo models started to get a reputation of being rough and uncomfortable, which, to be fair, stand-up coasters in general can be a little polarizing for some people.
Yeah.
You know, just depending on, you know, some people just don't like them, period, but other people are like, oh, it's such a unique experience. I really like that. So just, I don't know. I think the novelty of standing up wore off really quickly, because like the first one opened in 83, and by the end of the 90s, no one was building them anymore. Like, that's how fast they were like really popular, and then just died off. So
we've heard that they're just not comfortable,
which is fair.
And people want to be comfortable, even if it's
true.
A roller coaster.
Yeah,
like people pay for comfort.
Wouldn't you know it? So B&M would actually only build 2 more stand-up coasters after Chang opened. So they would open Riddler's Revenge at Six Flags Magic Mountain in 98, which broke all of Chang's records. 215 feet longer, 2 feet taller, 2 miles per hour faster, and another additional inversion. And still operates at Six Flags Magic Mountain to this day. So this is like the biggest stand-up coaster ever built, and has kind of stayed that way ever since. Because the only other one they opened was Georgia Scorcher, which still is open at Six Flags Over Georgia, but it's a lot smaller. It's kind of similar to size of the one that's at Carowinds. So B&M would start building their floorless coaster in 1999, and that model was much more popular, so they just kind of abandoned the stand-up coaster, and everyone wanted the floorless one anyway. So throughout the late 90s, Mantis was still the newest coaster at Cedar Point. The only other one they opened in the 90s was Woodstock Express, which is the family coaster that I rode by myself, and you made fun of me for. So I
did. And you deserve to be made fun of.
Wow.
It was weird.
Wow. No, I gotta get the credit. We have lots of enthusiasts listening to this that have done the very same thing. You can't judge them.
I'm not judging them, I'm judging you.
And that's judging them by the transitive property. So,
oh my gosh. Okay, continue.
So finally in 2000, Cedar Point opens Millennium Force, which absolutely took all the attention off of Mantis, because Millennium Force was massive. You know, the first 300-foot coaster, largest investment since Mantis. So in 2001, Togo goes out of business in the United States, which made it much more difficult to get parts for the Togo stand-up coasters. So Kings Island would close King Cobra that year, and they used the parts from that to maintain the ones at Canada's Wonderland and King's Dominion. I think both of those closed in like 2014, 2015. So you can none of the Togo stand-up coasters are around anymore. So
Is there any Togo ones?
I think there's only one Togo roller coaster in operation in the States now, and it's in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So now we jump forward all the way. Oh wait, one more thing here. King Cobra, the Togo stand up at Kings Island, is now partially occupied by Banshee at Kings Island. So again, we're kind of coming full circle here. all these coasters histories are tied into one another.
Connected.
It's all connected. So
sorry, I'm feeling real funny tonight.
That's good. Hopefully that means you're enjoying it. Enjoying our episode today. So
I hope that people are enjoying my craziness.
So now let's jump forward all the way to 2014. So Mantis is 18 years old by this point. A lot of the B&M stand-up coasters are starting to show their age. Some more than others. For example, I still hear a lot of enthusiasts say that Riddler's Revenge at Six Flags Magic Mountain is still excellent. And I've heard Green Lantern isn't that bad. That one's a little bit more polarizing, but Mantis, on the other hand, was developing quite the reputation for being rough. And with other coasters like Maverick and Gatekeeper opening, Mantis was kind of becoming an afterthought among the guests at the park. It was just uncomfortable. There was newer stuff that people would rather ride, and so, it was just, becoming less and less popular. So on September 2nd, 2014, Cedar Point announced the permanent closure of Mantis. And this might be the most ridiculous video we're going to watch today. This is the last one I've got, and somehow this one from 2014 is just as absurd as the ones from the 90s that we watched. So,
Okay,
you ready for this one?
Yes.
Why would you do this?
I'm so uncomfortable.
So it says, "Goodbye is never easy." In this case, it is. But it shows the Grim Reaper walking up to Mantis.
Ever wonder why you are not supposed to step on the Mantis?
Take one last stand. Mantis gets squashed October 19th. Now, I will say, now that I'm watching this, I didn't realize this the first time I watched it, but this guy right here, that's the park manager. I didn't recognize that the first time I watched this, but that's the park manager.
Really made me feel uncomfortable.
Yes, that's the park manager. That's Tony. That's the manager of the park. That's really funny.
Yeah, he made me feel extremely uncomfortable. I was like, please stop making those noises. Please.
He's just very sad, Haley. I do like the tongue-in-cheek part of the video, though. Like, you don't need to be sad about Mantis going away. We know you're not. Just, acknowledging the fact that, we know that this has become uncomfortable to ride. So. But that was it. That was it. From that video, you just assume they're tearing it down, right?
Right.
Demolishing it. Something else is going to come in its place at some point. But Cedar Point had a trick up their sleeve that no one was really anticipating. And 16 days later, so just a little over 2 weeks later, September 18th, 2014, Cedar Point announced that rather than demolishing Mantis, it would be converted from a stand-up coaster to a more traditional floorless coaster. This conversion would come with a new paint job, a new theme, and a new name, Rougarou.
What is a Rougarou?
It's the name of a legendary creature in French folklore. It's very similar to what we consider a werewolf, basically. So, yeah. So, which I think is a great idea for.
Please just name it werewolf.
I don't think you can just name it werewolf, but you can name it something like Curse of the Werewolf. That's the one coming to Universal Studios next year.
No wonder I thought that was a good name. So, but yeah, Rougarou. It's basically a werewolf, which I think is a good theme for a ride that's like supposed to be over a swamp. Like, I think that's a good theme. It's just not that obvious to people. Like, it's...
So change the logo to make it look more like an actual...
That I agree with. I completely agree with that. Because people can't... I saw one of the customer reviews, I didn't put it in here, but one of the customer reviews said something to the effect of, like, I just learned that this is themed to, like, a werewolf. So, like, it's not even that obvious.
Yeah,
Like, people kind of have to search for, like, what the heck is a Rougarou? So... yeah, kind of an interesting thing there. This type of conversion from a stand-up to a floorless coaster had never been done before. So it was a pretty exciting announcement, especially for people that liked Mantis, but liked the layout that Mantis had, but like the stand-up trains weren't that comfortable. Like the idea of taking the same layout but putting a more comfortable train on it is a really interesting idea. So work began shortly after the announcement, and they actually worked with B&M on this. Like, this wasn't something that they went to some other company and said, can you do this for us? Like, B&M actually worked with them to provide them with their floorless train and make it functional on their, So, it was very, very put together and, seemed like it was going to be a really easy solution. So, now it was still a lot of work. Which is interesting. They began work on this shortly after the announcement in September, which seems really early.
So did they give last rides on Mantis or not really?
They did. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. So they started working on this in September, which seems really early for just a simple repaint and throw on some new trains, right? Well, there's a couple reasons they started so early. First of all, they wanted to repaint the ride as soon as possible because...
Yes, please.
Well, they wanted to complete it before the winter weather came. Which makes sense. They'd rather get it done sooner than later because they wanted to finish by the end...
Winter up there is ridiculous.
Oh, it's terrible. So, and it can, depending on the humidity and how much snow there is, that can totally ruin the paint. So,
yeah,
they felt like the fall was a good time to get the paint job done. And they wanted to get everything done by the end of March, so they had a full month to test it before they opened. So that was kind of the project timeline they were working with. So now that part of the project actually started before Mantis officially closed. You can actually see here, so this picture right here has the sign for Rougarou's opening spring 2015. Still has the Mantis sign out front, and you can see it says here, Take the Last Stand, Sunday, October 19th. So that was, I'm guessing they had like a closing. I don't know if it was a ticketed event or if it was just like, come to Mantis on the last day. It's open with the park or whatever. But people did get to go and take last rides on Mantis, which I appreciate when the park does that. Yeah. So, but you'll see in this picture, it's actually mostly painted to the new Rougarou paint scheme already. But you can see there's a little bit back here and still in that yellow from Mantis. So in this picture, I looked at the date from this picture. This was October 2nd. So this is like 2 weeks before the closure. So I couldn't confirm whether it was completely repainted before it closed or if it was like partially repainted. So, but it's
interesting that they painted it and let people ride it.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. But again, it was like they were just like, we just got to get this paint job done before the winter came.
And they were like, oh, let it dry overnight.
They actually like all the videos that I saw, they actually were painting it during the day. So I don't know if they just like had it closed some days and open other days. I don't know exactly how they did that because like I have a picture here actually from, you can see some of the work that they're doing repainting it. So
do that.
So the other thing is maybe it was closed up until the 19th. Maybe they opened it for one day just to let people come get rides on the last day.
That'd be interesting.
I don't know. So I don't know exactly how they worked through that, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. So some people got to ride Mantis, but with the Rougarou paint scheme, which is kind of interesting. So some of the other...
There's another rare credit.
Yeah, there's another rare credit. It's like... it's stupid. It's like Rougatus or Mantaroo. It's like somewhere in between the two. You like Mantaroo? There you go. So.
Looks like a kangaroo.
It's not that kind of Roo. It's like...
I know, but that's what it came in my head. I don't know. That's okay, continue.
So what else did they have to do? Well, the floorless trains are wider than the stand-up trains, so they actually had to, in the station, they had to cut the loading deck back a little bit to make room for the trains to actually fit. And they had to do that in a couple other areas to basically widen sections so that the trains would actually fit. The brakes and the motors had to be replaced. One, because they were old, but two, because they wanted them to function properly with the new trains. And then the station had to be completely gutted and replaced because floorless coasters require a station platform that moves, right? Because you get on the platform moves into place. Load. You get on you board, and then the floor drops out from under you. Right. And so obviously the stand-up coaster didn't have that functionality, so they had to add that to the station to make Rougarou function properly. So, and then once all of that was completed, they finally were able to just remove the old Mantis trains, and then here you can see them putting on the new Rougarou trains. So it's kind of interesting watching this video. It looks like they load it, or they put it on one car at a time, and then I imagine once all the cars are on there, then they can kind of push them into place and then affix them together into a whole train. I imagine that's probably easier than trying to lift a whole train and put it onto the track at one time. So I don't know why I never thought of that, but it just kind of something I noticed in the video. So, And then another, little picture here of them repainting the track, which is done by hand, by the way. So, I mean, this guy's painting with a roller. Not, he's not like spray painting it like with a roller. So I don't know if there's different ways that they paint it.
How did they paint a coaster?
Yeah.
And that's wild, seeing them just do it with a roller.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So this company
so time consuming.
The company that did the Rougarou paint job is a company called Bainham Painting, which they're known as probably the number one industrial painting company in the amusement industry. So they do really, really good work. So
I mean, it looks really clean. Like there's not like smooth and everything. So they do a good job.
Yeah. So a lot of work, definitely. So especially like
I wonder how
think
big
about
their team is
and think about what if you hired them to repaint something like Powder Keg that's like out in the woods that you have to like get cranes out into the trees and like get them in the right spot to reach different parts of the track. Like that's so much work. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So, after all this is done, and after a month of testing to ensure everything was running smoothly, Rougarou would officially open to the public on May 9th, 2015, and continues to operate to this day. Reception from the general public has been good. Enthusiasts, it's kind of been mixed. And personally, I'm going to give my 2 cents here just a little bit. I think that enthusiasts are a little bit biased about Rougarou because, as we talked about, at Cedar Point, it's the 8th best coaster there, right?
Yeah, it's hard to compete.
Well, and I think when you're at Cedar Point and you're riding all these really great rides, you're riding Steel Vengeance and Maverick and Millennium Force.
Yeah.
And then you go and ride this, you're kind of like, oh, not that great.
It's not that awesome, yeah.
And so by comparison, it feels so much worse to all these other coasters that you've been on all day. But put this at Michigan's Adventure or Valley Fair or some other park like that, and instantly I think it would be ranked higher amongst enthusiasts just because of the comparison bias, I should say.
No, that makes complete sense.
So I personally rank Rougarou a lot higher than most enthusiasts. I'm not going to say it's better than newer floorless coasters like Dominator, but I do think it needs to get more credit than it currently gets from enthusiasts. So surely it's better than Mantis was, right? Like it has to be. I never rode Mantis personally, but I've been on those old B&M stand-ups, and they're not as comfortable as a floorless coaster. So, of course, Rougarou has to be better than Mantis. Though, I have seen some enthusiasts that wish they would change it back, which is...
What?
It's a little ridiculous, in my opinion. But
maybe if they did the
what if they put the new B&M surf coaster train on there? Now you're talking.
See? Not just another pretty face.
I wonder if the surf coasters are designed to work with a chain lift or if they are exclusively launch coasters. I don't know.
There you go. There's your next coaster to create.
Yeah, there you go.
Chain lift.
Planet coaster too. See if I can do it. Rougarou with the surf coaster train.
See? Again, and not just another pretty face.
So.
I'm good at this stuff. I should make some coasters.
There you go. So.
Just kidding. I'm really bad at that.
Since Rougarou's conversion, there's been 2 other B&M stand-ups that have received the same treatment. In 2017, California's Great America converted their stand-up Vortex into Patriot. And then in 2019, Six Flags America converted their stand-up Apocalypse into Firebird.
I like that paint scheme.
What, the one on Firebird here? Mm-hmm. Isn't that a slick-looking paint scheme? I really like that.
Especially amongst the red rocks.
Oh, yeah. It looks great. Pretty. That's a really nice paint scheme. So that's pretty much all we have to talk about. I know that, the conversion happened 9 years ago, but really because Rougarou opened as a, quote, new coaster, but not really a new coaster, it still was pretty far down in the lineup as far as popularity. And then Valraven opened, and then Steel Vengeance opened, and so it's continued to fall further down the totem pole, so to speak.
Right.
So even though Rougarou itself is only 9 years old at this point, it still doesn't get that much attention. So there's not a whole lot to talk about other than the conversion, because that was kind of the big thing that happened in its life.
Yeah.
Now, the one, I'll throw one more little fun story in, but to close our episode. This just happened last year on June 16th last year. The Cedar Point live cam, because they have live cams that just look down on the park and you can just watch them just for fun.
Yeah. Caught
a lightning bolt striking Rougarou's dive loop.
Whoa.
It's just crazy. Isn't that wild? So you can see just struck right there, right on the top of the dive loop. So no.
They need to rename it now.
Is that lightning rod?
No, not lightning rod, but strike of the lightning. Or...
I thought lightning rod's pretty funny. So
no, because lightning rod was.
That's the joke. So I think
lightning rod's a car, isn't it?
Well, that's yes, but this is what a lightning rod would actually do in real life. Is be
okay. Maybe I just don't get it.
Maybe. Well, that's what an actual lightning rod is for. The play on words for lightning rod is talking about a hot rod, but an actual lightning rod in real life is just a rod on the top of the thing for the lightning to strike.
Dizzy doesn't get it either.
Well, she's a dog, so. Anyway, so this is just kind of a fun little tidbit that happened to Rougarou last year.
That's
but
pretty crazy. I'm surprised it didn't do any damage.
Yeah, no damage. Just kind of
blessed.
Just a cool sight for enthusiasts to see on their Twitter feeds the next day. So, well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Airtime Traveler and learning about the history of Rougarou.
We are so grateful for all our listeners.
Yeah, so
we had a good time. And
to listen
fun, to us be crazy or goofy and you still enjoy us. We appreciate it.
So
Sneeze.
we appreciate you all tuning in and listening. So if you like that episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you might be listening on. It's not for our egos, not to make us feel better.
It's just a little bit for our egos.
It's not for mine. I don't know, maybe for yours, but it's really just to help people find the show in the future. It kind of helps with our search engine optimization. So, and we appreciate that. And if you want to follow us on our socials, you can follow us over on X/Twitter or on Instagram. Our handle is @airtimetraveler for both of those. And you can see some of the pictures and videos and ridiculous commercials from today's episode that I'll be posting over there if you want to kind of see some of that stuff.
Really need to watch them.
They're pretty great. They're pretty awesome. So, and I think that's all I have for today's episode. Anything further from the GP?
Nope.
Okay. Well, go and give Rougarou a ride, and
let's go Rougarou.
Go Rougarou. Mantaroo.
All Alright, we're done.
Well, thank you for tuning into this episode, and we will see you in the next one.